Here's a stat that's going to make your blood boil. Exposed narcissists win 70% of initial custody rulings. 70%. They walk into courtrooms wearing their best mask. They charm the judge. They cry on cue. And they walk out with your kids. But here's what nobody tells you. When that mask finally slips in front of a judge, when the real person underneath gets exposed for the entire courtroom to see, everything changes in an instant. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly how that happened. Not in theory, not in some hypothetical, but in a real courtroom with a real narcissist and a judge whose reaction left every single person in that room absolutely stunned. If you've ever been trapped in a legal battle with someone who lies as easily as they breathe, you need to hear every single word of this. So let me set the stage for you, because if you've never been in a legal battle with a narcissist, you might not understand why this is so significant. And if you have been in one, then you already know exactly the nightmare I'm about to describe. A courtroom, on paper, is supposed to be the one place where truth wins, right? There's a judge, there are rules of evidence, people swear oaths. You'd think, finally, this is where the narcissist gets caught. This is where the lies stop working. But here's the cruel, gut-wrenching reality. Courtrooms are actually a narcissist's dream environment. Think about it. It's a stage. There's an audience. There's a powerful authority figure to impress. There are rigid rules they can manipulate. And best of all, there's a victim, you, who is legally required to sit there and take it. Narcissists treat court like a performance. They've been rehearsing their whole lives for this. Every relationship, every argument, every tearful apology that wasn't real. It was all practice. Practice for the moment when the stakes are highest and the audience actually matters. And you? You walk in exhausted. You've been gaslit for years. You second-guess every word that comes out of your own mouth. You're terrified that if you show emotion, you'll look unstable. And if you don't show emotion, you'll look cold. You literally cannot win. And the narcissist knows that. They're counting on it. But what they don't count on, what they never see coming, is the moment their own arrogance becomes their undoing. And that's exactly what happened in the case I'm about to break down for you. All right, so let me walk you through what happened. And I want to be clear, this is a composite of real, documented court cases and patterns that family law attorneys see over and over again. I'm telling it as one story because the pattern is so consistent, it might as well be a script narcissists all follow. So picture this. A woman, let's call her Sarah, has been married to a covert narcissist for 11 years. 11 years of walking on eggshells. 11 years of being told she's too sensitive. She's crazy. She's lucky he even puts up with her. He never hit her. He never screamed in front of witnesses. He was the guy at the barbecue who everyone loved. Funny, charming, always the first to offer help. The neighbors adored him. His coworkers respected him. Even her own family thought she was exaggerating. But behind closed doors, he controlled every dollar she spent. He'd give her the silent treatment for days, sometimes weeks, if she disagreed with him on anything. He monitored her phone. He slowly, methodically cut off every friendship she had. And the worst part? He recorded her. During arguments he would provoke, arguments he carefully engineered, he'd secretly record her at her most emotional, her most broken, her most desperate. And he saved every single recording. Why? Because he was building a case. Years before she ever thought about leaving, he was already preparing for court. So when Sarah finally filed for divorce and requested primary custody of their 2 kids, guess what happened? He walked into that courtroom looking like Father of the Year. Pressed suit, calm demeanor, binder full of evidence, her tearful voicemails, text messages taken completely out of context, a list of every therapist she'd ever seen presented as proof of her instability. And his attorney? His attorney painted Sarah as an emotionally volatile woman who was alienating the children from their loving, stable father. Sarah sat there, listening to her entire life be rewritten. Every desperate text she'd sent, begging him to talk to her, to stop ignoring her, to please just be kind, twisted into evidence of harassment. Her therapy sessions, the ones she attended to survive the marriage, reframed as a history of mental illness. And here's what really gets me. The first hearing, the judge seemed to buy it. Sarah could see it in his face. She could feel the room tilting away from her. She told her attorney afterward, through tears, "He's doing it again. He's fooling everyone, just like he always does." But Sarah's attorney had seen this before, and she told Sarah something that would change everything. She said, "We don't need to prove who he is. We need to make him show who he is." That one sentence changed the entire trajectory of this case. And what happened next? That's where it gets really interesting. Now, before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, I need you to understand something crucial. And if you're in a legal battle with a narcissist right now, this might be the most important thing you hear today. So lean in. You cannot beat a narcissist by out-arguing them. You can't beat them by presenting more evidence. You can't beat them by being more emotional or less emotional, or louder or quieter. Because every single one of those strategies still lets them control the frame. They're still the director. You're still reacting to their script. The only way to expose a narcissist in court is to create conditions where their mask slips on its own. You don't rip the mask off. You make the room so hot, they take it off themselves. And here's why that works. Every narcissist has the same fatal flaw. It's not their cruelty. It's not their dishonesty. It's their absolute, unshakable belief that they are the smartest person in any room. That arrogance, that contempt for everyone around them, that's the crack in the armor. That's where you aim. So here's what Sarah's attorney did. In the weeks leading up to the next hearing, she did something that seemed counterintuitive. She stopped fighting. She stopped filing aggressive motions. She stopped responding to his provocations. She got quiet. And for a narcissist, silence is absolutely unbearable. Because silence means they're not getting a reaction. And without a reaction, they don't exist. So he escalated. He started sending increasingly hostile emails. He violated small provisions of their temporary agreement, showing up 15 minutes late for custody exchanges, making snide comments in front of the children, CCing his attorney on emails clearly designed to bait Sarah into responding emotionally. But Sarah didn't respond, not once. She documented everything. Every late pickup, logged with a timestamp. Every hostile email, saved and printed. Every violation, recorded without comment. And then her attorney did something brilliant. She requested a guardian ad litem, an independent advocate appointed by the court to represent the children's interests. And she made sure that the GAL had access to all communication. Not just Sarah's carefully curated version, not just his. Everything. Now here's where narcissists always, and I mean always make the same mistake. When the GAL started asking questions, interviewing the kids, reviewing the communication records, Sarah's ex couldn't resist the urge to manage the narrative. He started trying to coach the children before their interviews. He started love-bombing the GAL, complimenting her, sending her unsolicited, helpful documents, trying to form an alliance. In the GAL, she'd seen this playbook before. She noted every single attempt, every boundary violation, every manipulation. She was building a file he didn't even know existed. The trap was set. And the narcissist walked right into it because he genuinely believed he was outsmarting everyone. He always had before. Why would this time be any different? But this time was very, very different. And what happened at the final hearing is something I still can't believe a judge actually said out loud in open court. The courtroom, when the mask finally shattered. So the day of the final custody hearing arrives, and Sarah told me she almost didn't make it through the door. Her hands were shaking, her stomach was in knots, because the last time she was in that courtroom, she watched the man who tormented her for over a decade get treated like a saint. She fully expected it to happen again. But her attorney had prepared her. She said, "Today, you don't need to convince anyone of anything. You just need to stay calm. Let him be himself. The evidence will do the talking." The hearing started normally enough. His attorney went first, repeating the same narrative: Sarah's emotional instability, her alienating behaviors, his devoted fatherhood. He sat there, nodding along, occasionally dabbing at his eyes with a tissue. Performance. Pure performance. But then Sarah's attorney called the guardian ad litem to testify. And this is where everything changed. The GAL's report was devastating. She testified that during her interviews with the children, both kids, ages 7 and 9, showed clear signs of anxiety specifically related to their father. The 7-year-old had said, and I quote, "Daddy says Mommy is sick in her brain, and that's why we might have to live with just him." The 9-year-old had asked the gal, "If I tell the truth about Daddy, will he stop loving me?" Let that sink in for a second. A 9-year-old child is already afraid that telling the truth will cost them a parent's love. That is what narcissistic parenting looks like from the inside. The gal also testified about the father's repeated attempts to influence her assessment, the unsolicited documents, the flattery, the subtle pressure. She described it using a word that made the entire courtroom go quiet. She called it a pattern of coercive control extending beyond the marital relationship and into every system meant to protect these children. Now, here's the moment. The moment everything broke open. Sarah's attorney turned to the judge and requested that the father be cross-examined about specific emails he had sent. Emails where he openly contradicted his own sworn declarations. Emails where he mocked Sarah. Emails where he described the judge, this very judge, as, and I'm quoting directly, easily manipulated, just like everyone else. He had written that in an email to his own brother, an email that was subpoenaed during discovery. When that email was read aloud in court, you could have heard a pin drop. The judge's face changed. Not dramatically. Judges are trained to be neutral. But there was a shift, a tightening, a recognition. And then his attorney asked for a brief recess, because she could see what was happening. The mask was cracking. But it was during cross-examination that the mask didn't just crack, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. Sarah's attorney asked him a simple question. She said, "Sir, can you describe a time when you were wrong in your marriage? A time when you genuinely hurt your wife and took responsibility for it. He couldn't do it. He literally could not answer the question. He stammered, he deflected, he said, "I was always trying to help her. She just couldn't see that." He then launched into a monologue, unprompted, against his own attorney's visible distress, about how everything would have been fine if Sarah had just listened to him, if she'd just been grateful, if she hadn't turned everyone against him. He talked for 4 minutes straight. 4 minutes of uninterrupted narcissistic rage disguised as reasonable explanation. And with every sentence, the judge's expression shifted a little more. And then, and this is the part that gives me chills, the judge raised his hand. Just raised it. And the narcissist stopped mid-sentence. The courtroom was dead silent. The judge looked at him and said, and multiple people present confirmed these words. He said, "Sir, I have been on this bench for 22 years, and in 22 years, I have learned that the person who cannot answer a simple question about their own mistakes is usually the person responsible for most of the damage in a family. I've heard enough." 22 years on the bench. And this judge saw through him in one afternoon. Not because Sarah screamed or cried or begged, but because she got quiet. She let the evidence speak, and she gave the narcissist enough rope to hang himself with his own words. Sarah was awarded primary custody. The father was ordered into a psychological evaluation and given supervised visitation pending the results. His entire carefully constructed narrative collapsed, not because someone tore it down, but because he couldn't hold it up when the spotlight actually hit it. But here's the part of this story that most people miss, and honestly, it might be more important than the courtroom victory itself. Here's what nobody tells you about exposing a narcissist in court. Winning doesn't feel the way you think it's going to feel. Sarah told me that when the judge made his ruling, she didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel vindication. She felt grief. Overwhelming, gut-wrenching grief. Because that ruling confirmed something she had spent 11 years trying to deny. The person she married, the person she built a life with, the father of her children, was never who she thought he was. That fantasy was officially, legally, publicly dead. And that's something survivors struggle with enormously. Because you're not just grieving the relationship, you're grieving the person you thought existed. You're grieving the future you planned. You're grieving the years you lost. And a court ruling doesn't heal that. It just makes it undeniably real. Now, I also need to tell you what happened after court. Because the narcissist's behavior didn't improve after the ruling. It got worse, just in different ways. He filed appeal after appeal. He showed up to supervise visits and spent the entire time telling the kids how unfair the system was. He posted thinly veiled attacks on Sarah on social media. He contacted her friends, her family, her employer, always with plausible deniability, always just shy of a restraining order violation. This is what researchers call the post-separation abuse phase, and studies show it can last years, sometimes decades. The courtroom victory is not the end. It is the beginning of a new chapter that requires a completely different kind of strength. But, and this is crucial, it is a turning point. Because for the first time in 11 years, Sarah had something she never had before. She had validation from an authority figure. She had documentation. She had a legal record that said, in black and white, you were telling the truth. You were not crazy. What happened to you was real. And that is priceless. Because after years of gaslighting, after years of being told your reality isn't real, having a judge look at the evidence and say, I see it too, that is the moment healing actually begins. So if you're watching this and you're in the middle of a legal battle with a narcissist, I want to leave you with 5 things I need you to remember. Number 1, document everything. Everything. Timestamps, screenshots, witnesses. Your memory is not enough. Narcissists will rewrite history, and you need receipts. Number 2, get an attorney who understands personality disorders. Not every family lawyer gets it. Many of them fall for the charm just like everyone else. Find someone who has specific experience with high conflict personalities. It is worth every penny. Number 3, do not engage emotionally. I know that sounds impossible. I know it feels like you're letting them win by staying quiet. But your silence is not weakness. Your silence is strategy. Every emotional reaction you give them becomes a weapon they will use against you. Number 4, request a guardian ad litem or custody evaluator. Get a third-party professional involved who is trained to see through manipulation. This is often the single most important move you can make. And number 5, take care of yourself. Get a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse. Lean on your support system. Because this fight will test every ounce of strength you have, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. The courtroom is not where narcissists are supposed to thrive. It's where truth is supposed to matter. And with the right strategy, the right support, and enough patience, the truth does come out. Not always the way you want it to, not always as fast as you need it to, but it comes out. Because here's the thing about narcissists in court. They're performing for an audience of one, the judge. And judges aren't your friends. They aren't your family. They aren't your coworkers at the barbecue. They're trained professionals who eventually see through the act. Especially when you stop trying to expose the narcissist and simply let the narcissist expose themselves. If this story hit home for you, if you felt something watching this, I need you to do me a favor. Drop a comment below and just tell me where you are in this fight. Are you still in it? Did you make it through? Are you thinking about starting? Because I read every single comment, and this community we're building here, it's full of people who understand exactly what you're going through. People who won't gaslight you. People who believe you. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going deep on this topic. Next week, I'm breaking down the exact phrases narcissists use in court, the specific scripted lines they all seem to pull from the same playbook, and how to counter every single one of them. And if you know someone who's fighting this fight right now, a friend, a sister, a coworker who's been crying in the break room, send them this video. Because sometimes the thing that saves you isn't a strategy or a lawyer. Sometimes it's just knowing you're not alone. And you're not. I promise you, you are not alone. I'll see you in the next one.